Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the WARC Indian History Podcast. I'm Utkarsh.
Namaste, Sumedha here. I'm joining you from Geneva as usual, but do ask Utkarsh where he is joining you from.
Yeah, you may be noticing there's two things different. One is this is a Zoom recording. We normally have a full camera setup. And secondly, this does not look like my house. There aren't enough guitars or any,
No dogs, no dogs.
no guitars, no dogs. No, I'm actually in Thailand, in Phuket at the moment. Quick impromptu
Wonderful.
trip. But you know my dedication to WARC Indian history.
Yes.
It never abates.
Impressed. Impressed, Utkarsh. In the middle of everything, in the middle of Thai Phuket, you are
Yeah.
still willing to give this half an hour. So great. And viewers, this is going to be a short episode. Our apologies for that. But we have to work around our schedules. So I'm also
Yes. And
traveling next 2 weeks, but we'll try to keep this going.
yes, we will have something for you every week, as long as you ignore the percentage level of certain things in my bloodstream. We'll just ignore that for the moment.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
All right.
So, Utkarsh,
So
do
today,
you want to just
yeah.
talk about a little bit of the wonderful response we've had for the last one?
Oh, yes. So we've had a pretty incredible week. I think in percentage terms, we have practically doubled subscribers, I think, in the last 5 days.
More than doubled.
So
Yeah.
more than doubled, actually.
Yes.
So for those of you who have just recently subscribed, thank you.
Yes.
For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, also thank you.
Thank you.
But it's wonderful.
Yes.
It's always wonderful to see the momentum building up, and I do think it's good to see this because, again, as we keep saying, it's not necessarily these topics are not just for ourselves. I think this is information that needs to be out there in the world, and that is our main motivation for pursuing this particular podcast.
Yes. And we are very bucked up with this. It's very encouraging. We give our content out in the wide world. When the wide world responds, it's wonderful.
Exactly.
So you want to go ahead with announcing the new topic, today's topic, Utkarsh?
Yes. So today we're going to do something very interesting. These are the kind of stories that some of us have heard of, but we don't know enough, and we are all curious for more. So this is about India's rich history, ancient history of diamonds, and sometimes even curses linked to those diamonds, right? I
Yes.
mean, till
Yes.
till very recently, India was the source of the world's diamonds. So there's a lot of
Yes.
history there. So today we're going to find out a lot more. Honestly, I don't know enough, but I'm a kind of a history mythology being a bad word, but I am interested in those things. But I'm very interested to know the stories of these ancient Indian gems. There's so much there, I'm sure.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. India is the, what can I say? It's a crucible of gems, jewelry, and
Hmm, hmm.
things made out of gems and jewelry. It actually provided the entire world. And you're right about diamonds. Up till 1725, only India provided diamonds to the entire world from the beginning of civilization till 1725. And then
Oh,
some
really?
diamonds,
Okay.
yes,
That's
yes.
recent. I mean, I thought it was a little further back. Okay.
No, at
1725.
1720. Yes. Then some diamonds were found in Brazil. After that, in 1866 in Africa, and then De Beers.
Hmm,
So,
hmm.
now the idea of diamonds is they're a girl's best friend and Marilyn Monroe, and basically the marketing done by De Beers. But
Yes, yes.
diamonds have a long, long, long history before that. So, diamonds are one of the precious stones that we've talked about forever in
Hmm.
India. So you have from the Vedic corpus, you have the Atharvaved, which talks about diamonds. You have of course, my favorite book, which I keep referring to, the Arthashastra, is the first manual of diamonds extant in the entire world. It describes diamonds, how they are made, how they should be mined, where they are found, what are the types, what are the colors, everything. So everyone goes right back there.
Can I ask one question as you're explaining this Indian connection with diamonds? So, as you very rightly said, today the popular culture, perception, association of diamonds is with engagement rings and
Yes.
jewelry.
Yes.
The whole thing that in the Western world, a man has to buy a
A
proportionately
diamond
sized
ring.
diamond ring,
Yes, proportionate to his
which is a,
purse, or
which is a
sometimes
brilliant
disproportionate.
disproportionate. So my question is, so I'm very clear on the modern association and significance of diamonds. What is the deep, because in India, different gems, or in generally over time,
Yes,
different gems have had different associations. So, what is that association, the original
yes.
association of diamonds from its place of origin, which is
Yes,
India?
yes. So you see, there are nine precious gems which are talked of
Hmm.
in the Indic scheme of things. And I'm wearing this for a reason. See, this is Navratan. These are those
Hmm.
nine precious gems. You'll find ruby, sapphire, diamond, topaz, everything in this. We won't go into
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
nine gems, perhaps later. But see, this is in sum what gems, precious gems, were thought of as in ancient India, and their rings, their earrings, this. So this is a very central part of the way jewelry was thought of, as well as so many other things. Each of these gemstones, see, these have been mentioned, described in the Atharvaved, in the Arthashastra, but what you are talking about, very interesting question. When did this association of all these gems with different
Hmm.
planets and different qualities come into being? So remember our
Hmm.
Jyotish podcast where we did those
Yes. Yes.
Navagrahas. So all these are associated with one graha. Diamonds, they are called Vajra in Sanskrit because why? They're the hardest substance extant till artificial diamonds started being made. So before, I mean, since they are the hardest things and they are the most bright and sparkly things, they are associated with Venus. And why Venus?
With Venus.
Venus,
Okay.
Venus.
Hmm.
Because after the sun and the moon, the Venus is the one that shines brightest in the sky. So diamonds are associated with Venus. They are associated with purity, with strength, and with spiritual purity and spiritual power. So diamonds, Vajra, have been found in association with our gods and divinities. All our gods and goddesses are decorated with diamonds. Indra, the god of the Rig Veda, in fact, has his gada made of Vajra. It's made of diamond. And if you look at our iconography, all our Devis and Devtas are described in texts as wearing different kinds of gems, including diamonds. And in real life, when you go to a temple, then all deities are decorated with many different gems and gold jewelry,
Actually,
including diamonds.
yeah. When you say that, it just struck me when I think of, like, and we'll probably have a different podcast on this in terms of Indian wear and clothes. But if I generally think about the antiquity, when you think of somebody who's well dressed in an Indian ancient context, it is a lot
Yes,
of jewelry, both
yes,
men and women,
absolutely,
which is very unique.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so what is the reason? So, I mean, there's a symbolic part of it, but is there anything more practical linked to
Yes,
having all this?
apart from practical, I think this is something which is civilizational. So this
Hmm.
culture, these people had these beautiful gems which they could find in their own surroundings. These were
Hmm.
very beautiful and they had certain properties. For example, we know the properties of diamonds, we know the properties of gold and silver. Silver, for
Hmm. Hmm.
example, is something which purifies everything. It actually does, and
Hmm.
gold does the same thing, and each of these have certain qualities which have an impact on us, on our bodies, on our
Hmm.
environment. So where and when was this set out? This was set out in the 6th century. You remember Varaha Mihir, who was a great scientist, and we talked of him during the Jyotish podcast and during the maths and calculus podcast. So he is also the one, in his Brihad Samhita he set out all the qualities of these gems. So it
I
was
see.
through observation and some kind of understanding. Somebody wore a diamond and saw that this was the effect. Somebody wore a ruby and saw this was the effect. So it was for beauty. It was for collection of your assets, as in, it was, you could keep a lot of money in a very small way. And it was also because of the qualities and divinity associated with. They were all associated with different qualities and with different gods and goddesses.
I
So,
see. I see.
in if you want to see diamonds in practical Indian life, then you would see them maximum in temples, and you would see them with royalty, and you would see them with rich people, because obviously, these were not things which were easily
Hmm.
accessible by people who didn't have the money. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
in the Arthashastra, there is a list of diamond mines. Where are the places that the diamond mines come from? Many of those have already been worked and finished. By the time we come into the first millennium, those mines are already dead. but they were roughly, from the Himalayas. There was Surat, Nagpur, Sambalpur, and last and most important, that is Kollur. Why is Kollur important? It is what you today know as Golconda, what was then known as
Oh.
Bhagnagar. So that is where, the diamond mines are. The Krishna
Hmm.
Nadi and the Godavari Nadi. So diamonds, are formed and you can find them near waterbeds mostly. In fact, there is a very interesting documentary made by the Smithsonian about how diamonds are made and how they come up to the surface and where they are found. This was in the context of my research on folk diamonds. No point in linking it because I really had to go through hoops to see that. If you don't live in the US, it's very tough. But for all of you who want to go to the Smithsonian site, and perhaps
Hmm.
like I got a 24-hour pass to see that
Hmm.
documentary. So it's a very interesting technical scientific documentary on diamonds. I'm talking about
Hmm.
many other things, but that is like,
Hmm.
how they are made, what they consist of, why do they shine. And when we talk about the Hope diamond, like I hope we can, I tell you about some things that are there in the diamond which make it very mysterious and exciting. Very, very mysterious and exciting. So,
Si-
Vajra is,
hmm.
you were asking, you were saying
No, no,
something?
go ahead, go ahead. Please finish the
I'm
thought on
saying that,
Vajra. Hmm.
the thought was that Vajra is a Sanskrit name, but we talk of gems or we talk of
Hmm.
diamonds. Where does this word come from? So there's an interesting connection. Gems come from the Indo-European gem or jamb, which means teeth. And why is teeth interesting? Because the Indian story about gemstones is that Indra, the god, once defeated this Asur. He was called Valasur and he died. And from different parts of his body came the different gems. So from his teeth came diamonds. And you see
Oh,
that the English word for gems also can be traced back to the same story of the teeth of Balasur. Diamonds
right.
comes from the word for hardness, that is adamas, that's a Greek word for hardness.
Hmm.
So that's a very obvious kind of connection. So that's
Hmm.
that's where diamonds and that's where gems come from. Why I'm giving an intro about gems is because we'll do more on these gems later, Utkarsh. Today's
Hmm.
diamonds,
Hmm.
some bit of
Hmm.
diamonds, as much time as you have given your schedule, but rest of it we'll do later.
Absolutely. We should also do a parallel show on the Indian origin of
Different words.
certain words or certain concepts. Like, so you
Yes.
just mentioned jam, tracing back to an Indian
Yes.
story.
Story.
If you
Yes.
remember, I was watching the Three Body Problem, very
Hmm.
hot show right now,
Yeah.
and there they have they have these guys called the wall facers, and wall facing is the Chinese word for meditation,
Yes.
and we know where
Yes.
that comes from. That comes
Yes.
from
Yes.
Bodhidharma.
Yes. All of
So
you who are new, watch the Bodhidharma episode and you'll
yeah,
find that out.
you will absolutely find it out. So just to pivot back to diamonds, so you mentioned the Hope diamond. So what are the other famous diamonds? I'll tell you what I know. I'm like the
Yeah.
real, ignore. I know the Kohinoor, which is probably one of
Yes.
the most famous diamonds. I think it's
Yes.
there in the UK now, right?
Yes.
Stolen,
Crown
kept
jewels.
in
Yes.
the crown jewels. So
Mm.
there's the Hope diamond, there's the Kohinoor. Why don't you tell us about some of the famous diamonds? We can start wherever you like.
Yes. Yeah. Then there is also the Sansi diamond, the black Orlov. Any diamond which
Hmm,
is famous today in this world comes from
hmm,
India
hmm,
because there
hmm.
was no other source. So all
Yeah.
these diamonds with all these different names, all of them come from India. But look at the way they have been named. So naming is appropriation. Hope Diamond, she was an American heiress. So the diamond is as American as motherhood and apple pie, right? Wrong.
Hmm,
Or the Kohinoor. So the Kohinoor belonged to that fabulous Mughal dynasty, the great Mughal, and then Nadir Shah, and then Ranjit Singh, etc., etc. All wrong. The story of the Kohinoor, which I don't want to call the Kohinoor, I would rather call it the Syamantak Mani, is a very interesting one.
can
And
you
I'm
say
going
that? Can you repeat it again? Because I think
to
we'll all need to catch the word.
yeah. No, I am going to give you the whole story of two diamonds because we
Okay.
can't deal with all of them. We'll talk
Yeah.
about the Kohinoor and we'll talk
Hmm.
about Hope. And we
Okay.
give them, well, we can't always give them non-colonial names, but we'll try. But Utkarsh,
Hmm.
we've been asking for questions from our viewers. So one
Hmm.
question from the viewer is something I'd like to deal with right now,
Hmm.
and then go on to our stories because that's an
Sure.
important question. So she
Hmm.
asked me, fine, great, so many diamonds. How come none of them are in India? Where are they? And if they are not in India, why don't they come back? So
Hmm.
the story of the diamond is a story of colonization and loot. Most of these
Hmm.
diamonds in the Indian context were owned by royalty, but more than royalty, of the biggest and most beautiful ones were in temples. And they were in the eyes of the deities, either in the eyes of the deities or on the forehead of the deities. This is how diamonds were used, especially, small diamonds, fine, you have thousands of them, but the big ones,
Hmm.
the 100
Hmm.
carat ones, the 200 carat,
Hmm.
600 carat
Hmm.
ones, they were all kept in temples in
Hmm.
the eyes of the deity or in the decorations of the deity.
Hmm.
So how come they're
Hmm.
not there any longer? Because they were all looted. They were looted by the Islamic kings. They were looted by the British in a very, very, very terrible kind of way. And any connection with Indian and especially Indic and Hindu roots seems to be lost. Do you think Hindu when you think diamond, Utkarsh? You don't. Of
Nope.
course not.
Nope.
Because,
Hmm.
but that's where they come from. The names of these original diamonds, one of them could be the eye of Brahma or the eye of Jagannath, but we don't know all that. So this is a story of loot. And especially in the 17th and 18th centuries, India it was torn. It was a battleground between the Marathas, the Portuguese, the British, the French, and the entire country was in turmoil. Aurangzeb was in his very badly declining years, and there were a number of other sultanates coming up in the rest of the country, especially around Golconda. So the situation was such that all the riches of the country were flowing out. Of course, gems, diamonds have always been sold. In fact, it is said that the people in Rome, they paid so much for Indian gold and diamond that they had a kind of huge uh, gap in their budget.
Deficit.
Their
Hmm.
huge deficit. So the
Hmm.
signet rings of Darius and Polycrates, they were supposed to have diamonds from India. So diamonds have been going out of India, but in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, or rather 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, it became a question of loot. So it was like they would attack Mughals, of course, attacked and desecrated temples and stole all the jewels. The British,
Hmm.
whatever jewels were left, they came in, they stole from the Mughals or whatever was left of them, and they also stole from the temples. It is so far back in time that it is very difficult to establish the legal ownership. How do you establish the legal ownership going back 1,000 years, 2,000 years? It's very difficult. And those were such confused times that a proper kind of line of ownership almost impossible to find out, because
Hmm.
they were looted and people were killed. So obviously nobody is going to leave any records of that. You just have
Hmm.
these stories, and some of them are buttressed by different evidence that you can find. There is a very, very interesting book by someone called J. Tavernier. He was a French natural scientist, come trader, come what generally somebody who traveled the world and got
Hmm.
great things from everywhere and then sold them off. So he came to India between 1635 and 1688 6 times, and he's written a book on these 6 voyages. And from there, a clear description of the way in which diamonds were mined and the way in which they were looted and the places where he found them. So here I will refer back to this when I come back to the Hope Diamond. But one thing I really want to point out here is, the Kohinoor was very famously on the peacock throne of the Mughals. There is a description of this throne in Tavernier's book. And
Hmm.
in the same chapter, he describes that really, really opulent throne, not with just diamonds, but gold and all kinds of gems and huge, and how rich everything is. And then in the next paragraph, he says, but the average Hindu in this country, he calls them idolaters. He doesn't call them Hindus. Idolaters is the word he uses.
Hmm.
So the average idolater in this country does not have even clothes to wear or food to eat. All of it is siphoned away by the courtiers and then sent to the king, the sultan at the time, in the 17th century. I think it was Aurangzeb at the time. And they have siphoned off all the wealth, kept it with themselves. The average person is living in poverty and living in hunger and destitution. So this contrast he sets out, and then he of course also says something that I have mentioned to you before. I don't know if I haven't. That this way of keeping Hindu peasantry in destitution was also one way to convert them to Islam. And this is mentioned. I mean, I'm not saying this right here. It's Tavernier who says that. So there was a lot of, in 17th century, a lot of riches in India. They were not well distributed, and a lot of them were siphoned off by the Brits, by the Europeans. A lot of them were siphoned off. So this is the answer to the question of where they are. They have all been looted, taken away from our temples and from the people who owned them. We can't find any legal link to who owns it, except in the case of the Kohinoor, which I will tell you. And I don't know how we're going to get it back. For example, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was looted from a temple in India. But can we get it back? It's a very good question. Right now, the answer is no. So this I wanted to deal with before I kind of went on to two different stories. So which story would you like to hear first?
Kohinoor. Let's go with
Okay.
that.
Okay. Let's go with the Kohinoor and then the Hope. And then I think for today, that will be about as much as we can do, right?
I want to just ask you about blue diamonds, if you can mention that at the
Yes.
end.
Yeah. So I'll mention it when I talk about the Hope, because Hope is
Okay.
a blue diamond. I'll talk about.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
Kohinoor, like I do not like to call Mount Everest as Mount Everest, but it should be called Sagarmatha. Similarly, the so-called Kohinoor is said to be the Semantak money, which is mentioned in the Mahabharata. So what is this in the
Oh,
Mahabharata?
it's
Yes,
that
so
old.
it's that old. It's that old. So in the Mahabharata, Krishna, remember, Lord Krishna was part of the Yadav clan. They were a very huge clan of people who ruled over later Dwarka and earlier Mathura. And one of their nobles, Satrajit, who was a relative of Lord Krishna, he got this from Suryadev because he was a great upasak of Suryadev. So then many people were very jealous about this gem because it was supposed to give you, no hunger, no thirst. You would always be energetic. You would always have good luck. So it had some very amazing powers. So there was a lot of strife in the Yadav clan about this. Then Lord Krishna had taken it from him for safekeeping and he gave it to his younger brother called Prasenjit. Now, Prasenjit went to the jungle and he was killed by a lion. The lion also took that Semantak money and then he was killed by a bear who also took that Semantak money. That bear was called Jamwan. Now the money was lost. The Semantak was lost and all the Yadav clan people started saying that it was actually Krishna who had stolen it and he has kept it for himself. So then Lord Krishna went to the jungle, found the bear Jamban, fought with him and got back the Semantak money. Incidentally, he also married Jambavati. Then he came back and he presented that jewel to the Yadav and said, here it is. And then it was kept in safekeeping. Of course, the Mahabharata is so long ago. After that, it goes off into the realms of anonymity completely. And then you hear of it in the 13th or 14th centuries in certain Islamic annals. After that,
How do we know it's the same diamond?
Yeah, so that is normally on the description of the diamond. That's a very tricky issue, Utkarsh. It's on the description of diamond. So that is, the four C's: color, clarity, cut, and carriage, and the shape and the size. So this is a very good question, and repeat this question when we come to the Hope diamond, because there also, which diamond was it is a very interesting one. So again, for this we have to rely on textual things. We don't have any drawings or anything. So it is a story that has stuck with the Indian people. So I believe there must be an element of truth in it. Then it was with in the 17th century, there was one Garcia de Orto who mentions it. He was a naturalist. Then in 1628, we know that the throne of Shah Jahan had it. In 1739, Nadir Shah carried it away when he came to attack and loot India. In 1813, Ranjit Singh got it because he defeated the successors of Nadir Shah. and he got it and he kept it with him. When he died, it went to his grandson, Dalip Singh. The British fought with the Sikhs, they defeated them. They put Dalip Singh's mother in jail, under torture. Jindan Bai, her name was. And then they asked Dalip Singh to give that diamond to them. So they made him sign a kind of, will and testament that yes, I give it to them out of my own free will. But what was the last will and testament of Ranjit Singh? Ranjit Singh had said that I have this incomparable diamond and I want to give it to Jagannath Mandir for Lord Jagannath's eye. So it should have gone to Lord Jagannath, but as far as these gems are concerned and courts and courtiers are concerned, there's always a lot of hanky-panky going on. So because of that, it did not go there and it finally went to the crown jewels of England. There's a story there also. It was shown as an exhibition. People didn't like it much. So then Albert, who was Victoria's husband, decided to cut it. So then he cut it in such a way that the carriage came down by half.
Oh, wow.
That means the size came down by half. And then it has been put on the crown of, now it will be King Charles. So that's where it is. But there are recurring voices that it should be returned. But then the Brits are very clever and they say, so should we return it to the Taliban? Or should we return it to Pakistan? Or how can we return it to India? Because, these are the other claimants. So it's a very, very murky issue. And like I said, given thousands of years, the lines of property and documents, etc., are very, very difficult to set down. But this is the Semantak money. So this is perhaps, the oldest and most, the story which goes back to a very, very, very long time. So it's very close to the heart of people in India. So there are always very many voices that to please return it to us. But as of now, no such chance. This is the Kohinoor.
You said it was cut into, it was made half.
See,
so there are two pieces of it now?
No. What happens is that, a diamond is like a stone like this.
Yeah.
So when you find it, it's there's a certain way of extracting it. It's deep gravel pits are cut into the sides of the river or wherever it is that you're mining it. Then the gravel from there is taken out and then it is crushed and left in water. Then that is left to subside. And then when you find those little stones are there, you sift through them. So you find some stones which are diamond. Now you have to know which ones to pick up. These are then cut. So what happens whenever they are cut, and there are many different cuts. It's a huge separate technical area of cutting, many types of cutting. So when you cut, what happens? The size becomes smaller. So it depends on what kind of cut you want. There are different ways of cutting it. Eastern ways are different. Western ways are different. This brilliant cut, which is now the most famous and popular one, the brilliant cut, the rose cut. What are they doing? They are chipping away at the stone. So when you chip away at the stone, those chips will be left and the diamond will become much smaller.
However, okay.
Yeah. However, your question is a very valid one because diamonds also have some natural inflections or places where they can be broken into parts. So many times in the history of famous diamonds, some of these big ones, if you crack them from there, then they will fall into two parts very nicely, not crumble into pieces, but two proper parts. So that is also done. But in the case of the Kohinoor, not so. In the case of the Hope diamond, indeed.
Okay.
This did happen.
Got it. So is that the segue to the Hope diamond?
Yes. So, okay. Now, I'll also talk about blue diamonds. So blue diamonds are very, very, very rare, extremely rare. And blue diamonds, which glow red, are the rarest of the rare. So these are these blue diamonds who have phosphorescence and they glow red. And that is so because of the presence of boron and nitrogen inside them. So these are really, really rare. But the idea of a diamond which has a blue, which is of the color blue, glowing red, is just amazing. And apparently you can see this phenomenon in the Hope diamond. So if you see that documentary, you will see some videos of this phenomenon, which is actually quite amazing. But blue diamonds are very rare. In the Arthashastra, a list of colors of the diamond is given. So they are white, they can be yellow, they can be pinkish, red, many colors. And blue is one of the rarest ones. Black ones are generally very less found in India, but black diamonds are found in other places. Now, this blue diamond, the most famous one is what we now know as the Hope diamond. It was earlier perhaps called the French blue. And before that, where was it? So, this book by Tavernier, the Six Voyages, he describes a lot of things about where he's gone, what he's seen. So, near Kollur, which is near Hyderabad. So Kollur has a set of medieval temples standing even today. So he gives a description of I went to this temple and it was a temple of Ramji, Sri Ram and Sita, and the deity was had blue diamonds in the eyes. He gives this description, doesn't say anything more about it. At the end of the voyage, he reaches back to France and then he goes to Louis XIV, the Sun King, who was at the moment ruling over France. And he offers a blue diamond, a very big blue diamond, to the Sun King. The Sun King buys it. So the story is, this French blue was 115 carats, which is like pretty huge. Although it is said that there was some, which was one diamond named the Great Mogul, which was 600 carats, 900 carats. So we've had really big diamonds from India.
Mm-hmm.
So we are at Louis XIV. So the Louis XIV has it cut, crafted in many different ways, and it's put in the crown jewels of France. Then, of course, 1789, we have the French Revolution. 1792, we have the Reign of Terror. During the Reign of Terror, in 5 days, all the French crown jewels were stolen. And some of them were recovered, but the French blue was never, ever recovered. So what happened? Okay, another 100 years passed by. In 1812, suddenly you hear of a big rare blue diamond which is acquired by Thomas Hope. Now nobody knows where it has come from, who stole it, who kept it, but the caratage is much, much less. It is not the 115 carat, or after cutting it, it had become some 70 carats for Louis XIV. It is much less than that. It's cut down by almost 23 carats. It's 23 carats less. So we don't know where is the rest of it. Is it diamond chips? Is it another diamond stone? Nobody knows. So this person, this gentleman Hope, he bought it. Then it reached his grandson, Lord Francis Hope. Now, the story of diamonds is always the story of squandering it and women. All fantastic, beautiful, mysterious femme fatales who do something or the other to the owner of the diamond. So the money of Lord Francis Hope was squandered on this lady, this actress called May Yohe. She was very famous during her time. So he squandered all his money on her. He had to sell it. So he sold it. And it then came into the hands of the Walsh family. So Evelyn Walsh McLean was the heiress to this family. The Walsh family was rich by itself, and McLean was, her husband was another very rich fellow. So in 1910, it was offered for sale to Evelyn Walsh, who bought it. And the thing is that people have started associating all these, especially the Hope diamond, with a lot of curses. Because see what happened. What happened to the French monarchy? Finished and gone.
Yeah.
What happened to Thomas Hope? Lost all his riches. He was a rich London banker, but lost all his riches. Francis Hope died in penury. Then you come to Evelyn Walsh. She bought it and she flaunted it for a few years. And then there was this, she bought it in 1910. Then there was this whole series of disasters. Her 9-year-old son died in a carriage accident. All the businesses failed and they lost their money. Husband and wife divorced each other. And basically complete misfortune. So by this time, and also, the story of the original deity, for Americans, it was something, that it has come from it was supposed to come from some very fierce deity who was looking out for it and who would get you if you kept the diamond. So the story of Evelyn Walsh became so well known because she really flaunted this diamond a lot. That after her death, her heir sold it to someone called Harry Winston. He was a diamond merchant of New York. Now he toured with it for some time, and then I think he also decided that he didn't want any part of it. So he donated it to the Smithsonian. Very famously, He put it in a normal envelope, and with postage of $2.44, it reached the Smithsonian. And that is where it has stayed all these days. But the Smithsonian Institute has done a lot of much more research on it, which is why we now know that it is the French blue. How do we know that? Because in the Book of Taverniers, there was a drawing of that French blue. Also, in the Natural History Museum of France, in its archives, you found a drawing of the French blue as it existed. Those two were the same. Then you have obviously the Hope Diamond is still here. So when models were made of the Hope Diamond and models were made of the French blue, the Hope Diamond fitted right into the French blue. So obviously, and you can see all that in the documentary, the Smithsonian Institute documentary. So obviously, whoever stole it was scared, didn't want to sell it as the French blue. So they broke it up and they sold it, cut it and sold it as the Hope Diamond. Right now, the Hope Diamond is what, so many of the people from the Smithsonian say that we are not a monarchy, but we still have crown jewels. And the Hope Diamond is the crown jewel, part of the crown jewels of the US. So look at it, Utkarsh, crown jewels of the UK, of Russia, of France, of now what we can see in a way, the US. All of them have come from India. Now we've been saying we'll talk about the curses. I've told you about the curse of the Hope Diamond. The Kohinoor also, it hasn't really worked out well for anybody. Nadir Shah, decimated. Mughals decimated. And then look at the British monarchy, the state in which it is right now. So I would say perhaps.
When did the Kohinoor go into their crown?
Yeah, so that was with Victoria. And a few years, say 40, 50 years after Victoria, the empire was dead.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe there's something to it. Now, what I want to say is, why do we have curses associated with diamonds? One is, of course, that, they are they're things which cost a lot of money and arouse a lot of human greed and desire. So there are some stories of killing, violence, looting, murder, suicide. People also may buy them when they can't afford them. So all these things give rise to that great thing called greed. And greed always leads to very many bad things. But the other thing I feel as an Indian, as a Hindu, is that all these have been stolen from our temples. All these have been stolen from our deities. So no doubt there is going to be a curse associated with it. You have stolen it from the deity to which it belongs. And in the most horrible way possible. There are some terrible, terrible stories, Utkarsh. There's another diamond which was supposed somebody cut his own thigh, made a space inside it and pushed the stone in so that he could walk out and steal it. He was in cahoots with a Brit and a local. This is the one which is called the Eye of Brahma, which then went to Russia. So, and then they walked out, but then the Brit killed the Indian man and took that diamond away. But then he also was found dead. So, where there are diamonds, there's going to be.
And did it go to Tsar Nicholas just before we know what happened?
So yeah, so it was there in the, not exactly, I don't remember with Tsar Nicholas, but we will deal with the Orlov. One day I will tell the story of the Orlov, the Black Orlov, which was there in the Russian crown jewels. And there is a story associated with it, and they do say that it was there with the Romanovs. When they were killed.
The collapse of Russia, one of the world's biggest monarchies, to absolute chaos was unprecedented. That set the for everything else.
So curses are, I feel it is the curse of our deities for those people who have colonized, looted, and stolen. So I believe in these curses. They will never rest well in all those looted places where they belong to right now. And in the end, in the longer run, maybe 50 years, 100 years, we should definitely try and get these gems back. Buy them if possible. If there's nothing else works, just buy them. The Kohinoor, of course, should be returned because it was taken by duress and cheating by the British. But for the others, buy them if we can't get them back. So diamonds in these, especially these big diamonds in these countries, are going to be cursed because they are the curse of a wronged people. They are the curse of a colonized people, and they're never going to get away from it. Interesting sidelight, Utkarsh. You know that now diamonds natural diamonds are falling into some kind of disuse because artificial diamonds are coming up. So India is
Yeah.
one of the places where artificial diamonds are being made in the most forward progressive way, I mean, most developed way possible. So when Joe Biden and Jill Biden had come to India, the Prime Minister had presented them with a 7.1 carat pink diamond.
Hmm.
Artificially made, sorry, green diamond, artificially made. So now the world is moving from natural diamonds to artificial diamonds. India is at the forefront of that too. And the world diamond trade is also in the hands of Indians, but we'll talk about that some other day.
Okay. Famously so, I think, the diamond trade. I think even I know
Yes.
about that.
Yes, yes. And the secret way in which they talk to each other, the finger of the buyer and the seller, they are intertwined under a cloth. And they just
Hmm.
talk to each other through the fingers, saying nothing, no expression on the face,
Hmm.
because they don't want anyone else to know. The entire transaction, sale, purchase is done like that. Since time immemorial, there's a special language of the fingers.
We should definitely talk about that at
Yes,
some other
yes,
time.
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Good. Yeah. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. No, I think we need to have a follow-up episode. I
Yes,
think we
we
need to talk
will.
about a few more
Yeah,
gems and
absolutely.
diamonds more, and then the other gems as well.
Yes. And the
And
Navratna,
probably
and connect them
hmm,
up with the grahas also.
with Jyotish, exactly.
Connect
Exactly.
them up with Jyotish. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, think of it as a kind of placeholder,
Yeah.
and we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
So keep watching and
I don't know if
thank.
you. No, I was saying if you listen to one of my favorite history podcasts, though of course I'm aware of its blind spots, is Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. And his episodes are typically 5 hours long, 6 hours long. They're like books.
Oh God.
But yeah, actually longer. And then there are that's one part. There are like 7 parts to the episode. He does one every 3 to 4 months. He
My
does these blitz
goodness.
episodes. His blitz episode is 2 hours. That's a short form. So this is our blitz, Mark History Blitz.
Yes. So you must put it. You must put it in the header. Mark History Blitz. Yes.
Blitz edition.
So thanks a lot, Utkarsh, for being able to do this. Short
No, no,
but
no.
sweet.
Short and sweet, and as always, so much food for thought.
Yes.
Um, which is perfect as the sun is setting here in Thailand.
And you may be off to party. Enjoy
I may
yourself.
be off. Yeah, I may be off to get some more food for thought.
Yes. So we'll see you next time. And till then, namaskar.
Take care.